The good news is the Dodgers outplayed the Marlins for most of this game in every way except the runs column. The bad news is they determined the winner based on the runs column. But the other good news is by the end of the game, the Dodgers outplayed the Marlins in that way too. It was tight. Let's talk about it live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here on Monday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, I'm Jeff Snyder. That is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. And the Dodgers had some, it wasn't an ideal way to go into a bullpen game tomorrow, having to have their bullpen throw 4 2/3 innings in this game. We'll talk about that in the second segment. And Dave Roberts had some interesting substitution moves that ended up paying off at the end. We'll dig into that in the third segment. But first, let's just talk about this game, Vince, because the Dodgers were up 5-0. It looked like it was going to be a runaway victory. And then one bad inning. You could make a case it was 8 bad pitches by Anthony Banda. He walked his first batter on 4 pitches and then got into a terrible pitchers count and ended up giving up a grand slam to tie the game. And boom, suddenly it's 5-5. And it stayed that way until extra innings, which was not what any of us kind of thought was going to happen early in this game.
Yeah, you look at, getting through the 5th inning, you look at Dustin May's pitch count. I think he was around 71 pitches at the time. And you're thinking, okay, May, with the lead that they have right now, he can focus on throwing strikes. The Marlins, hitters aren't as good. May's staff is pretty good. You're thinking May's going to, go 7 innings, and the Dodgers are going to only have to use 1 or 2 arms to close out the game. And simple as that. And sometimes, as we see in baseball, it's not as simple as that. And it's not always pretty, but they got the win. That's what mattered. But, yeah, it could have been a lot easier and a lot shorter.
Yeah, it was definitely a long game. And, we used to joke before the pitch clock. We said, okay, Dodgers, you can either play for 4 hours or you can lose, but you can't do both. And this one, it was only about, almost exactly, I think it was about exactly 3 hours, which feels really long in this pitch clock era. I'm looking at 2 hours and 59 minutes. Feels like a very long game. It is long compared to other games, which I guess that's a good thing. But in the end, they did come out victorious. And, talking about Dustin May and the pitch count and everything, how he seemed like he was cruising, this is kind of why the saying exists. Every pitcher's cruising until he's not. It's why I always say I'd rather pull a guy 1 pitch too early than 1 pitch too late, because you never know what's going to happen. Of course, in this case, it was the reliever who came in, and and that's the flip side of when you do have to pull your starter. The more relievers you have to use in a game, the more chance somebody's going to be having a bad day. And that's why bullpen games are less than enthralling, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But, in a lot of ways, it's more about the third time through the order and everything, why pitch count isn't really everything. It's, it's just kind of a scientific fact in almost every case. Almost every pitcher just gets worse the third time hitters are seeing him in a game. And whether that's what it was with Dustin May or if he was getting fatigued, whatever it was, he kind of got a little bit lucky earlier in the game a couple times. He had a couple double plays bail him out. In that second inning, there were, 4 balls hit over 100 miles an hour off of him. And so the fact that he was through 5 innings without allowing any runs, I was like, wow, this is definitely the Marlins we're playing against.
Yeah, with May, you look at, that 6th inning, and he issued the single walk and then, single. But he was all over the place that inning from the start. So I'm, gonna hope that it's a little bit more fatigue, and wish it wasn't more about fatigue, because, like I said, he wasn't that deep into the game. He didn't have that many stressful pitches. Like I said, he did get lucky a little bit, did get out of some situations. But he was either way out of the zone or super in the zone. There was really no in between that last inning he pitched. And, it's kind of tough to see, sucks to see. You saw his reaction when Banda did end up giving up the grand slam. And, he knows that inning was his, and he probably believed it was his. And it's more about that than the actual results of what happened after he left. It's a tough way to go. And yeah, with Banda, I mean, walks, two walks that inning. Of those 5 runs, 2 of them were put on base, and that's always going to be the thing that frustrates me the most about pitchers. I know that nobody's perfect. They're going to issue walks sometimes, but when you issue a couple walks, you give a couple hits, and then you give a grand slam. That's how a 5-run lead disappears.
Yeah, it's not ideal for sure, and you definitely feel for Dustin May, even though everybody in Major League Baseball understands like the win statistic for an individual pitcher. It doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't affect him in salary arbitration. It doesn't, but you still like to get that W next to your name. It's even if your brain knows it doesn't really matter. What matters is a team win. You want that W next to your name. I was hoping that the Dodgers would take the lead back in the bottom of the 6th and not relinquish it. Because then we could have had a fun scorekeeping quirk where even though Anthony Banda would have been the pitcher of record, he wouldn't have been the winning pitcher because he was what they call brief and ineffective. But instead he wasn't, because they didn't take the lead and he pitched another inning. And so, but in the end, the winning pitcher was whoever it was, Kirby Yates. It's all in all, like offensively, you look at this game and everybody on the team except Michael Conforto had a hit. Everybody in the starting lineup. And one guy not in the starting lineup, Tommy Edman, who got the big hit to end the game. You had Muncy and Rojas were the only ones with multiple hits, but then you had Ohtani had 3 walks. Freeman had 2 walks. There was just a lot of traffic on the bases, a lot of team baseball. And yeah, they squandered a couple opportunities. They had bases loaded, no outs. They got 1 run in and then still had bases loaded, no outs, and didn't get any more runs in, even though it was the heart of the lineup. At the time it was 5-0 and, or whatever. Yeah. I think that was already 5-0.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, well, yeah, it would have been nice, but not the end of the world. And then, it ended up being pretty important, but overall, like this was a good offensive team effort. And other than a couple batters from Anthony Banda, it was a good pitching team effort too. Like the Dodgers allowed 0 runs other than that 6th inning. And unfortunately in baseball, the other than innings count too.
Weird game overall. Like the Marlins are not a team that doesn't strike out. I think they're in the middle of the pack in terms of strikes out, but only 4 strikeouts in this game. Like not even jumbo jack 7 for them. And 2 of those strikeouts were from one of their hitters. So yeah, a little bit of weird game. Dodgers couldn't put guys away. They got, 3 double plays. That was a big momentum shift in big parts. They also hit into 2, I think. So, it kind of flipped in itself in that way. But yeah, it's kind of like when they played the Rockies, like they won all those games, but you weren't necessarily super inspired by the effort. You were like, and you look at the numbers in the Rockies series, they had 2 games with 10 plus hits and, put up some runs there. Here they put up, end up putting up 7 runs, got the 12 hits and a bunch of walks. But yeah, it leaves you wanting more, and that's just more expectation than anything else. At the end of the day, they won. And with all that we've talked about, with all that's happened, with everything that's gone wrong, the Dodgers stayed in first place again.
Yeah, they gained first place. The Giants didn't play, and so the Dodgers came into the day half a game back. Now they are tied for first place. And ultimately, it's a good way to start the series because now it kind of kicks them into gear and say, okay, let's make these last 2 games less close. And it'll be interesting with Sandy Alcantara on the mound for the Marlins, against the bullpen game. Who knows? But Dodgers did get the win. But as we mentioned, it's a rough way to head into a bullpen game, having to throw 4 2/3 innings after having to throw a lot of innings, after throwing 8 innings on Sunday. So we'll talk about whether the Dodgers' plans for this bullpen game might get altered a little bit by this game. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. My son had a baseball tournament this past weekend. I loved sitting, watching him play, and munching on delicious no-shell honey-roasted pistachios from Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Maybe you prefer pistachios in their shells. Well, they got you covered there too with their in-shell options. For me, I don't like to touch food with my hands, so I like the no-shell so I can just pour a few straight into my mouth from the bag. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch, so whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios is the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Hey, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and then you're an everydayer. And you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can also go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can text directly with us, have one-on-one conversations with us through text, get our thoughts before the podcast, and be part of our exclusive Discord server where we have a lot of fun talking during games, between games, all sorts of stuff. Really smart group over there. So come join us there. And for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. So bullpen games are always a scary proposition. They're not an ideal situation. It's a situation the Dodgers are currently dealing with Blake Snell out and now Tyler Glasnow out. By the way, I guess if you hadn't heard, Tyler Glasnow officially did go on the injured list, so he's out for at least the next 15 days. They said there was no structural damage. They don't seem super worried about it, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, general body soreness as well.
So. Yeah, so don't we all? But they were doing this bullpen game either way. And so you would have liked to have Tyler Glasnow on Sunday and then Dustin May on Monday go deep in the game so that you have a fully rested bullpen for the bullpen game. Instead, we got almost the exact opposite of that. 8 innings from the bullpen on Sunday and then 4 2/3 in this game on Monday. I guess the good news is it wasn't the top pitchers because, like we mentioned, Ben Casparius taking down 3 2/3 on Sunday was huge. And then Yoendrys Gomez taking down 3 innings was big. And so the other 2 guys who pitched in that game, Alex Vesia and Luis Garcia, are both going to be available for the bullpen game. And in this game tonight, of the relievers who pitched, Anthony Banda is the only one who threw more than 12 pitches. He threw 21 pitches. And so, but also he hadn't pitched in a couple days. So Banda's probably available. So really we're looking at when they put Glasnow on the IL, they called Noah Davis back up. And so they currently have a 9-man bullpen, and Ben Casparius will not be available, unfortunately. Yoendrys Gomez will not be available. I think that's it, right? Like everybody else, the other 7 are all available, which means they will need somebody to take down multiple innings because you're going to have to cover at least 9 innings. But
to be fair, I guess we don't know Gomez is unavailable because they could use him and DFA him.
Yeah,
wouldn't be fair to him, but
he threw 50 pitches. I guess it would maybe increase the chances of him clearing waivers if they DFA'd him. Although it's long enough that I doubt he's available. So we're probably looking at Alex Vesia, Luis Garcia, Anthony Banda, Evan Phillips, Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates.
Jack Dreyer hasn't pitched any of the last 2 games. Jack
Dreyer and Noah Davis. That's our 7 guys who are. Was that 7? And you figure Luis Garcia can probably go multiple innings if he needs to. They've got a few guys. Noah Davis is probably a guy who could go multiple. Jack Dreyer has gone multiple innings a couple times this year. But do you think that they just roll with it and say, okay, we've got these 7 relievers available. Let's go for it. Or, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess that's really, we haven't heard anything different unless Bobby Miller's on a plane somewhere or already in LA. Then I guess that's what the plan is. I would imagine since Dreyer hasn't thrown the last 2 games, maybe he gets to start and maybe they say, hey, we need like 40 pitches out of you, whether that's, 2 innings, 3 innings, maybe sneaks into a 4th inning. Who knows? I would imagine they hold Luis Garcia as long as they can, because he's going to be the guy that will have to finish a game if it's going bad or finish a game if it's going good. And then they're just going to have to mix and match in between. They're in a tough spot. I mean, it's, I guess, not to say lucky it's the Marlins, because the Marlins, were, like I said, annoying today. Just 4 strikeouts. But pitching to contact isn't necessarily the worst thing when you're in a bullpen game and you need guys to give some length. But yeah, it's kind of tough the way they've led into this, especially with, as good as Gonsolin's looked in the minors and even in the spring. You don't know exactly what you're getting out of him Wednesday. I guess that'll, Casparius and Gomez could be ready for Wednesday's game. If I think Casparius has been getting like 2 days rest in between, so maybe that's that's what they're going to go with. They're going to hope for the best on Tuesday and hope Gonsolin gives them a little bit on Wednesday, and have 2 guys behind them that are good for length. Yeah,
because that's the other hard part, because it's not like you do have a stopper going on Wednesday who's going to give you 8 innings. It's going to be, they're thankful for the bullpen game or for the day off on Thursday, but that's their last day off for a while. And so it's not like, there's part of me that wouldn't be shocked if we find out tomorrow morning that they've called up Bobby Miller to, start this bullpen game, and you say, go through a 4 innings and, try to remember it's the Marlins, and only allow 3 or 4 runs and trust the offense to win the game for you. Stranger things have happened. I haven't seen anything about it tonight, so I doubt that it's going to happen. But it's something about it makes me very uneasy. The idea of going into this bullpen game without any wiggle room there.
Yeah, and there's no that's the other part, is like no wiggle room, but also not necessarily, Luis Garcia could end up being the punching bag, but even then he's been decent enough for them in not the most high leverage spots, but it's kind of tough. Like you're counting on a lot to happen. You have, even today, I think Banda probably doesn't get another inning if they weren't in the predicament they are now, because he didn't pitch very well in that inning that he did pitch.
Yeah, no, that was very much you pooped the bed, but we need you to do another inning. And he was much better in his next inning. And the fact that he was able to come in and poop the bed and pitch another inning and still only throw 21 pitches total kind of tells you how Jekyll and Hyde he was here. And maybe it's inherited runners. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look and see what else he's done with inherited runners this year. But whatever it was, he just, it was rough. And that's the other thing. It's like, well, one of these 7 guys we're counting on tomorrow is the guy who blew the 5-run lead today. And then another one is Luis Garcia, who is not great. And another one is Noah Davis, who is probably worse than Luis Garcia. And, so
Kirby Yates, who didn't show himself very well pitching back-to-back days.
Although he also has pitched back-to-back days a few other times this year and did do really well. And so we remember the negative and forget the positive, because that's how human brains work. But it's I am looking forward to the day when Tony Gonsolin and Clayton Kershaw and Blake Snell are back and Shohei Ohtani is back, and we never have to say the phrase bullpen game again. And I recognize that that's a pipe dream that will never actually happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the spot they're in right now. They're going to have to really tighten things up, or we're going to see some movement here, because they don't have the luxury that they had in April with all the days off. So they'll have the one last Thursday off. Then they're on a long road trip. Then they come back home. They're on a long homestand. Not a lot of days off in the month of May. They're, for a bullpen that's overworked, and for one that Dave Roberts, wasn't happy that the fact that they have thrown the most innings. We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, here we are. So we will see. Maybe we'll wake up to news that Bobby Miller is on his way to LA to pitch in this game. Probably not, but we shall see. But in this game that the Dodgers did beat the Marlins 7-6, right? 7-6. There were some late game moves that were interesting. Replacements, pinch runners, pinch hitters, all that. Ended up paying off, but all of them are interesting in their own right. And so we're going to talk about them because we like talking about interesting things. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. What could you do with that $250 in bonus bets, you ask? Well, maybe you're a fan of the Lakers, who are currently down 3-1 in their series, but maybe you're really confident the Lakers are going to come back and win that series. Guess what? Right now, the odds on that are plus 385 for the Lakers to win that series. So if you place a $5 bet, you win that, and you get your $250 in bonus bets, put that $250 on the Lakers to win that series. And if they do, guess what? You just turn that into $962.50, according to the calculator app on my computer. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into player props. And after the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. We are back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, please become one. Thanks for being here live with us. Really good group here. Good chat going on. We appreciate all of you. And be sure to go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. I was telling them in the Discord server the other day, it is one of the smartest group of Dodger fans I've interacted with. It's a lot more fun than social media. Social media can be a little bit knee-jerky and overreacty and all those other words that aren't actually adjectives, but I use them in such a way. The Locked On Dodgers Insiders Discord server is not that way. It's just smart Dodger fans talking smart things about Dodger baseball. So be sure to check that out. So the Dodgers had 4 bench players going into this game because that's how it works. Tommy Edman got his first day off of the season. In fact, I think there had only been 2 innings of the season that he hadn't played late in one of the games in DC. He's played every other inning for the Dodgers. He finally got a day off. It didn't last. He did come into the game to pinch hit for Miguel Rojas, which is kind of funny that Rojas was 3 for 3, but because Dave Roberts. So I guess let's talk about that one first, Vince. Tommy Edman pinch hitting for Miguel Rojas, who was 3 for 3. Obviously, it paid off because Tommy Edman ended up getting the walk-off hit. And for me, going into that inning is totally different knowing that you have Tommy Edman coming up and not Miguel Rojas, because I don't know that you bunt Kike Hernandez to put the runners on second, third if it's Rojas coming up, because Rojas isn't as good a hitter as Tommy Edman, basically, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. I was the bunt was interesting in general, just because, especially these days when guys don't get to bunt a lot, especially a guy like Kike. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Tommy Edman's a better hitter than Miguel Rojas. And I'm never going to say, Rojas would have to be like, even if Rojas was like 30 for his last 30, and then I'd be like, well, he's due for an out. So if you pinch hit Tommy Edman, that's probably still a good bet.
Yeah. And it was a beautiful thing. And even though Edman didn't get a hit, he got out when the at bat where he did pinch hit for Rojas. It was definitely a situation where coming up, tying run on third base with 1 out, I was supremely confident that Edman would at least tie the game up, and not at all surprised when he won the game. So that was that spot in the lineup. The spot right before that in the lineup, I mentioned Kike Hernandez had the sacrifice bunt in that 10th inning. It started with Michael Conforto on second base because that's the cool thing about extra innings. Really fun. The only guy on the team who didn't contribute at all got to score the tying run because he made the third out of the 9th inning. So that's why Conforto was on base. Andy Pages draws a big leadoff walk to make it first and second. Kike Hernandez, who, as Joe Davis and Eric Karras mentioned, had laid down 1 sacrifice bunt in the last 6 years, did eventually get down a sacrifice bunt. It wasn't the prettiest thing. It was not too far away from being a pop-up, but he got it down, got the runners over, and that was a spot that Kike was batting because in the inning or two earlier, Max Muncy had gotten on base and they pinch ran for him with Chris Taylor. And there's a lot like that one spot, the 8th spot in the lineup. There's so much there. Obviously, it made sense after Chris Taylor pinch ran to put Kike Hernandez in the game because he's a better hitter than Chris Taylor. But I guess let's first talk about that pinch running decision, because they pinch ran for Max Muncy and then Chris Taylor didn't try to steal second base at any point. And Eric Karras was confused about that and frustrated about that at times. I've seen some people in the chat frustrated about it. I don't know. What do you think, Vince?
I know you're not putting him in here just to steal. Chris Taylor is not necessarily like a guy that's just for stealing. They wanted a ball in the gap potentially to for sure score a run. I do think the way they were running on the Marlins, the rest of the night, it might have been a good chance to try it out right there. And I'm not completely upset that they didn't do it, but I was thinking like, okay, at least try.
Yeah, and in the end, the Dodgers never did get a hit where it would have mattered. And who knows if they pitched differently, with the, and one of the points they made is if you steal second with Ohtani up, then they just walk Ohtani. But you know what? Ohtani ended up striking out, or right, he struck out in that at bat. And so, I'll take a walk over that. That aversion, you don't want to open up first base because then they'll just walk Ohtani. Okay, walk Ohtani. That's why it's the MV3 and not the MV1, because you've got guys behind him, and put Ohtani on base. Even Ohtani, the best player in the world, gets out 60% of the time. And so if you want to walk him, great, pass the baton. Let's get somebody else up there. In the end, I would guess that Chris Taylor had the green light and just never did feel like he had that move down. It looked like he was studying it, and whether he, for whatever reason, he didn't think he could steal on that guy. But I do think it was mostly just to get his wheels on the base so that if Shohei did hit a line drive down the right field line, it's an easy score and not Muncy chugging around the bases. Muncy is fast for his size and shape, but Chris Taylor is fast just for, with a period after the word fast and without any of those qualifiers that you and I are used to getting when people talk about our athleticism.
Yeah.
And then the other one was more of a non-move that Eric Karros had a really hard time with after Freddie Freeman got on base in the 9th inning. A leadoff walk, and Eric Karros was clamoring for the Dodgers to pinch run for Freddie. The problem is the only guy left on the bench is Austin Barnes. And Austin Barnes, in addition to, there's a few reasons. Austin Barnes is only a little bit faster than Freddie Freeman. So, and probably not as good a base runner. I'd say Freddie Freeman's probably a better base runner than Austin Barnes, and maybe enough better to completely make up for the small gap in the sprint speed difference.
Austin Barnes got picked off the other day, so I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't need Barnes on the bases right now.
Exactly. And if you pinch run for Freddie Freeman, then if the game goes to extra innings, which by the way it did, then you no longer have Freddie Freeman at first base. So you have Kike Hernandez at first base and Tommy Edman at third and Austin Barnes at second, probably. Like it was surprising to me. Because Karros wasn't necessarily clamoring for Barnes to pinch run. He's like, why aren't they pinch running for Freddie? And so maybe he just didn't totally realize that they had already used the whole bench. But the only guy on the bench today, you had Tommy Edman and Chris Taylor. Those are the two fast guys. The other guys are Kike Hernandez, who is not nearly as fast as a guy as athletic as him should be, and Austin Barnes. So you didn't have any fast guys available. It's not like there's a Terrence Gore on this team, as much fun as that would be. But it was weird. Like you and I both noticed it, Vince. It was just weird that Karros kept harping on it.
Yeah, I don't know what he was so adamant about it. Joe Davis kind of joined him in on it, but it felt more like, let me support my guy here rather than really believe what he was thinking. I would imagine, I don't know why putting Austin Barnes there. Barnes is not going to steal, and realistically running from first to home on a ball in the gap, once they get going, even though the numbers say that Barnes is faster than Freddie very slightly, but I don't know. Freddie, we've seen Freddie, and maybe it's because he's so big that he's sneaky fast and it just looks faster than we think. And Barnes is small, so it doesn't look like he's running as fast. But yeah, it just didn't factor in. There was no benefit to it, especially with no outs. Like you put him on there. Obviously, the Dodgers ended up striking out 3 times in a row, so it didn't really matter. But you put him on there, and if you're not trying to steal, then there's really no issue. There's really no point for me to put a pinch runner at that point.
Yeah, I could see that.
When the difference isn't that big.
Yeah. Cole in the chat had an interesting question. How fast is Jack Dreyer? Which I assume Jack Dreyer is not super fast. He doesn't look like he's built like a speedster, but it is a reminder that pitchers are allowed to pinch run. They can, I remember Ross Stripling in that game against the Pirates. Was it Barnes that hit that ball to the gap and Stripling scored on?
Might have been.
I feel like it was. I can picture most of the play. And yeah, Ross Stripling pinch ran a couple times. Tony Gonsolin has pinch run at times. Tony Gonsolin's not on the active roster yet. I'm just thinking about, obviously you're not going to send Roki or Yamamoto out there to pinch run. So I'm just looking
at many pitchers left anyways.
Ben Kasparis, he wasn't going to pitch. I bet Kasparis is fast. He was a middle infielder until, 3 or 4 years ago. Kasparis might have been an interesting idea there to run for Freddie, but then you're still have the defensive quandary in the, because you still got to then put Austin Barnes on defense because you're probably not going to have Ben Kasparis playing second base in a tie game in extra innings. So, but yeah, now I'm intrigued. Maybe I just think Ben Kasparis can do everything, but because now I'm like, I want to see Ben Kasparis pinch run.
He's a big dude, and not that big dudes can be not that it can't be fast, but yeah, it's also a thing of like if you don't really sprint very often, he probably didn't even wear spikes today. So
yeah, that's probably true. But yeah, in the end, the moves all worked out because one of the guys who was only in the game because Dave Roberts put him in the game ended up getting the walk-off hit. It reinforces what Clint and I talked about a week or two ago. I don't remember if that was on when Clint was here on Locked on Dodgers or when I was on his show. We talked about how I think I'd like to have Tommy Edman batting ninth, and here, like Tommy Edman got a pitch to hit because Shohei Ohtani's on deck, so Edman can just go up there and I know I'm getting something to hit. I'm going to be aggressive and boom. And it worked. And, I like that a lot. Obviously he was only batting ninth because he was in Rojas's spot, but whatever it was, it worked. Dodgers win the game. Hopefully the other two games of this series won't be this frustrating and close. We'll see. Sandy Alcantara may choose. The Dodgers hit him well when he was the best pitcher in baseball. I hope that everything hasn't flipped now that he's bad. Maybe he's going to have a good game against the Dodgers, but hopefully they'll just hit him even weller, Yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep them under 3 hours and keep them in the win column.
Yep. You got anything else for today, Vince?
I know people probably wanted to talk about Michael Conforto. There's really not much for us to say at this point that we haven't already said. He's not hitting. He doesn't look like he's close to hitting. And I would imagine the Dodgers are just hoping that he starts hitting.
Yeah. And he's not going anywhere yet. And, we're probably not going to, we've done 2 segments on him in the last week. So probably at least another week away from devoting an entire segment to will Michael Conforto ever remember how to hit? So that'll do it for us for today. Thank you all for being here with us. Again, thank you to the bunch of you who are here with us live. We appreciate you. All you who are listening after the fact, we appreciate you just as much. Don't let those live people bully you. We appreciate all of our listeners and viewers. So thank you. Be sure to, for your second listen, you can check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and both of our DMs are open there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning. We hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.